Senate or their
Ladies and gentlemen, could I have your attention, please? It's 7 o'clock. We'll get started. Would you please stand and, if able, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I apologize for the rain. I washed my car yesterday. It's all on me. Good evening. Today is June 9th, 2021, and this is the first forum for the candidates in the 2021 OPA Director election. I will introduce the Elections Committee. I'm Steve Habiger, Chairperson. The members of the committee are Mark Heinz, Bob Windsor, Carol Ludwig, and Marianne Whitcomb. Association Secretary Cammie Rogers is our board liaison. The successful candidates in this election will serve until 2024. Many decisions will be made by the board over these years. Thomas Jefferson wrote that a well-informed electorate is a prerequisite to democracy. Our purpose this evening is to help inform Ocean Pines voters about the four candidates. We asked for questions, and boy, did Ocean Pines respond. We have over 3 dozen questions, far more than we can ask in the time allotted tonight. We are planning to have a second virtual forum. Time, day, everything will be announced when we can get that coordinated. The goal of the Elections Committee is to mail the ballots in this election the week of 12 July, and all ballots must be received, repeat, received, by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, August 13th. Ballots can be dropped into the ballot box located in the lobby of the administration building or mailed using the enclosed return envelope. These 100 ballots arrived after the deadline in the recent referendum. The last election, a year ago, 165 ballots arrived late. We can't count them, they're not valid. We don't even open the envelopes. Please help us. The Postal Service is not our friend these days. There's a few in Pennsylvania and Florida, but the vast majority of these were mailed, postmarked Baltimore, which means they were either mailed on the Eastern Shore or in the greater Baltimore area. And they still arrived a week late. So please, we want to count your ballot. Your vote is important. This year, the candidates are, in ballot order, Frank Daly, Stuart Lackernick, David Hardy, and Rick Farr. From now on, I'll refer to the candidates by their first name. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for an opening statement. Following the opening statements, we'll ask the candidates a number of questions on topics of interest to association members. Mark Heinz is our timekeeper this evening. He'll display a timer for the candidates and issue a 30-second warning as their time winds down. After the question period, during the question period, candidates will be called randomly. All candidates will be able to answer every question. At the end of our questions, each candidate will have 3 minutes for a closing statement, and that will be done in reverse ballot order. The first question is not in random order. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to have opening statements first. Frank, although I would have skipped over all of you. Mr. Daly, go ahead, Frank.
My name is Frank Daly. My wife and Irene moved to Ocean Pines in 2013 and are involved in a number of community organizations. I was elected to the board in August of 2018. Prior to founding my own company in 2009, I served as a VP and division manager of 2 firms on the executive management committee of 4 companies. I have an MS degree in engineering, an MBA in finance and marketing, and attended the Wharton Executive Development Program. When I ran for the board 3 years ago, this association was in serious trouble. Staggering losses in our operations exceeded $1.6 million. We were in the midst of an active criminal investigation. A deep dive audit indicated that we had weak, ineffectual business practices. 2 former board members leveled charges of fraud, theft, and corruption, and we were in the early stages of a $250,000 forensic audit. During this period, 13 staff employees resigned, retired, or were terminated. Our homeowners and employees had lost confidence and did not trust the ability of the board and the management to effectively run this association. Things have changed pretty dramatically since 2018. I've used my experience and conservative financial approach with the specific objective of improving the management of this association and keeping your assessments low and stable. During my 3-year tenure, your assessment has increased from $986 to $996. And during this time period, we have rebuilt aging facilities, repaid $2.1 million in losses from the Hill-Bailey era, strengthened homeowner protections and values, improved our amenities, introduced Comcast to the community, and made major strides in improving our infrastructure. And let's not forget, we also managed our way through a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. Staff retention and morale has been outstanding. Last year, 4 employees left this association, 1 through death, 1 through retirement, 2 to get other opportunities. Other candidates will attempt to hide the fact that they get their marching orders from a special interest political action group. I will not. My marching orders do come from a special interest group. That group is the 8,452 homeowners that comprise this association. My core values of honesty, integrity, and independence focus my efforts not on special interests, only on yours, the homeowner. I'm asking for your vote to continue my work to improve the core values of this community, our finances, its infrastructure, and our management. I look forward to hearing your concerns and answering your questions.
Thank you, Frank. Stuart?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank the Elections Board for holding this forum, and I want to thank you coming out in this dreadful weather. My name's Stuart Lackernick. I've been a chiropractor and functional neurologist for the past 30 years, and owning my own practice has enabled me to develop essential business skills. During my successful career, I had the opportunity to provide professional services to people of all economic backgrounds and ethnic backgrounds. This diverse environment enabled me to develop a strong listening and communication skills and to treat everyone with respect and kindness. If elected, as your new member of the board, I will bring proven leadership, experience in financial management, customer care, and problem solving. During the past year, we witnessed some troubling events unfold. For example, a member had to take legal action against the board, and the court ruled in his favor. Our star employee resigned because of how she was treated in the workplace. Do you want this to stop? This year, perhaps more than before, who you elect will determine the long-term success of Ocean Pines. I will represent full and part-time homeowners equally and work hard to make necessary improvements to our board. I wish to thank the 1,050 members who voted for me last time. And for the other members, I hope you please consider voting for me this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. David?
Well, obviously, I'm David Hardy. I am not a board member, and I can't tout accomplishments having been a board member in the past. I consider myself what is known as a materials scientist and engineer, and I have a number of graduate degrees in the hard sciences, engineering, chemical engineering, physics, etc. And I've had 4 distinct career paths that I have followed. I am a retired military officer, having served in excess of 20 years as a field artilleryman and also as a logistician. I've been in private industry also for 30 years, so I was running both a military career as well as a private sector career. I worked primarily for small business and startup. I started my own business a number of times and managed the personnel, managed the money, because I believe you should run any operation as a business. Not necessarily everything has to be a cost center per se, but you need to keep an eye out for how you're managing your budget, because if you don't live within your budget, you don't have a business that'll last very long. I've also been an academic in that I currently have in the past, and I continue to teach at college level. Currently, I'm a adjunct at Cecil College, and lastly, I work for the federal government as an engineer, as a federal civilian. I work currently on APG, and although I can't talk freely about the work that I do, I just say that that effort is involved in helping the warfighter and ensuring that our nation is kept as safe as it can be. And in fact, most recently, quite a bit of the effort of the teams that I've been part of has actually been involved in the pandemic response and developing the vaccines that have been available to each and every one of us here recently. I look forward to being involved, bringing a new perspective to the Ocean Pines community. I do believe that everyone in the community should have an opportunity to have a voice in what's done. I will listen. I will be part of this community. A number of years ago, my wife and I decided that this was the community that we wanted to retire to, and we're slowly moving to that end to relocate ourselves to my home here in Ocean Pines on Seagrave. I look forward to having this opportunity. I thank everyone for even letting me be part of this forum, and I look forward to the rest of this particular forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Rick?
Good evening. Thanks for coming out. I really appreciate it, especially with this wonderful torrential rain that we had, that we have almost a packed house here. My name is Rick Farr, once again, and it would be an honor to serve on this board. I've been a property owner since 1999 and full-time here since 2019. I am a father and I'm a grandfather. I'm a retired United States Air Force combat veteran and served in many combat operations around the world, and I will tell you that had helped me in my transition to the corporate environment after serving for over 20 years. I'm currently a Vice President of Human Resources for a IT cyber firm out of DC, working remote here. And I also serve on many executives boards in the DC area. While serving in the military, I was also an instructor for professional military education. I taught leaders how to manage and how to lead people. I served as an instructor, a curriculum developer through the Community College of the Air Force, teaching situational leadership, conflict resolution, time management. Now, what does that have to do with Ocean Pines as a director? Well, it will bring integrity to our board, and that's first and foremost. I'm not a politician. I'm here for the people, here for the community. I'm not going to make promises that I cannot keep. But the promise that I can give you is I will listen and make sure that the voices of our community are heard and understood, and that those concerns will be brought to the board. That's first and most important. I do plan to retire here in my second career, and I love Ocean Pines, and it's where we have family and friends who've decided to live here. A lot of people, when you mention Ocean Pines, know the community. It's out there. Our demographics have changed quite a bit here. There's a lot more full-timers than ever before. Our demographics have changed where we have a lot of youth. We have a lot of families that are here going to schools, and we want to make sure that we do everything that we can to make their lives better in this community that we all live in. So with that, I thank you. It will be an honor to serve you and to serve everyone in this community. So thanks you once again, and I look forward to an opportunity to serve on the board.
Thank you, Rick. Well, I've already been informed I've made an error already. The ballot box that I encourage you to use is located in the lobby of the police department, not the administration building. Please don't put your ballot in the assessment box and all that stuff. So, thank you. Now, the first question is not going to be random. Frank, you're going to be number 4, and we're going to go in ballot order: Stuart, David, and Rick. Short-term rentals. What do you think of the current plan, and do you have a better idea? Stuart?
It seems to be a hot topic recently, short-term rentals.
I think that the rules are already in place from the county. Commissioner Bertino said in the newspaper last week when he was questioned on there not being any mechanism for enforcement, that he wanted to set the record straight and say, yes, in fact, there was, and that the enforcement mechanism is complaint-driven. I don't think we should put more restrictive covenants on owners here in our Ocean Pines. There are, if the county takes your fee of $200, then the county is responsible for enforcement. Now, with that said, you have to understand that you have to have a procedure to file a complaint. I feel that we need to alert our membership to dial 911 when they're forming a complaint. This way, a record is made, somebody has to respond, and if there is an issue, then we can move further on it. I think putting more restrictive covenants on our owners, look, these people use this money, they support their life. How dare we put more restrictions on their life investment? Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. David, do you need the question again? Sure. Short-term rentals. What do you think of the current plan, and do you have a better idea?
Of course, my initial answer to anything that it changes the way things are today is to first ensure that I have all of the facts that are germane to the issue at hand. I have taken advantage of letting someone rent my property. I do comply with federal, state, county, and Berlin requirements. And believe me, just like was mentioned just a second ago, you have to comply. You have to have a safe home. You're supposed to maintain your home in the proper stead, and you have to have a license hanging inside your building. And everyone should comply with that. And if they don't, and we put more rules on, well, what's to say that they will comply with that either? I agree that you need to have an easy method for the community to register complaints. I work for the government. Oh, gee, I should be in favor of having more government, more layers of bureaucracy. Well, that's not the case. We should limit how bureaucratic we really are. If the county needs more assist or Berlin needs more assist, we should find the path to make them or enable them to do their job more efficiently, whether it be a better complaint process, because I do understand also that in reality, the individuals that are most concerned are very, very few. And the reality is we have, 8,500 residents, 8,400 residences in this community. And I'm a firm believer that we don't let the actions of a minority, a very small minority, impact the lives and the decisions that the majority has to follow. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick, you got the question? Yes. Great.
I think first and foremost, we have to understand the process. And I think it's really important, as Stu mentioned, that we have to educate our members. That's first and foremost, and that's the most important process. And what do we do with the complaints that are there? You know, what is the process of the enforcement of these particular complaints? If there are trash, or there's issues with trash, well, let's get with the homeowner who has that property and maybe get some more trash containers for that as well. How are we going to deal with the noise complaint? You know, are we following what we currently have in our processes? You know, I know that there are other developments that are out there that have noise restrictions at certain times. Is that something that we want to implement? These are some of the things that we need to do as a board to decide. Should there be certain quiet hours, you know, that are enacted, and really have an opportunity to have the enforcement process with that. As far as you know, dealing with, which I know is a big issue, is parking. There's really nothing we can do right now dealing with the parking issue on the short-term rentals. But on the things that we can control, such as the noise and such as the trash, there are mechanisms in place that we can go ahead and push forward to make sure that we hold these individuals or the owners responsible for their properties and making sure that they are maintained into the standards that we have and what we expect in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Frank, need a question?
First, let me clear up a misrepresentation about what we're trying to do. We are not trying to put in any more restrictions than what currently exists. What we're after is a more effective enforcement mechanism. Last year, we had an experience where somebody throughout the season rented a property for about $40,000. They were fined because they refused to get a Worcester County rental license, and they told the county point blank, we're not going to comply. In February, remember I said during the season, they were fined $500 after making $40,000 in rentals. As far as more restrictive, I want to read something to you from an attorney. The declarations of restrictions for 15B, 16, 17, 18, and 19 executed by entities other than Boise Cascade restrictions already provide that lots are subject to all federal, state, local rules and regulations, specifically and without limitations, the Worcester County zoning ordinance. Therefore, they must comply right now under the existing declaration of restrictions. That same DR in those sections say we also have the ability to fine. We've had it for 20 years. We haven't used it. We want to expand that to all sections so when we get an irresponsible property owner that does not follow the existing regulations and the existing law, that we can act faster and quicker than the county. As far as the county enforcing, it's a myth. They don't have the resources. They don't have the budget to get the resources. In fact, today we got an email as directors from the county asking us to chase down somebody where one of their license holders made a complaint to the county.
Thank you, Frank. The following question will be in the order of Rick, David, Frank, and Stuart. The question is, Ocean Pines is not a municipality, but it is the largest year-round residential community in Worcester County. How would you work with county and state officials to help bring in additional funding, and how would you propose spending county and state funds? Rick first, then David's on deck.
Sure. One of the biggest things that we need to do is making sure that we develop partnerships from the local, state, and government facilities and government individuals. You know, it's a big partnership, and that's one of the biggest things. And you know, we want to make sure, just like we've done with our project, our flood project with Bainbridge, we've made great established relationships with coastal bays. And those are type of the opportunities that we need to continue to do, and really have an opportunity to partner and be able to get certain grants that can help us upgrade our municipalities, upgrade some of the things that we have in our infrastructure here to help our community. And I think that's first and foremost in doing so, and reaching out to these officials and let them know what we are looking for and how we can partner with them and how they can partner with us to make a better community, and we can enjoy the resources that they can give us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. David, followed by Frank. Do you need a question? Okay.
Thank you. My career path, especially in the government sector and in private sector, has put me in a position where I've had to go out and find investors, work with the government, local, state, and federal, to receive grants, as well as part of the federal government and working as a manager of program to put together private-public partnerships, as was mentioned, to get programs to move forward. It's amazing how much money is available from the federal government, as an example, for energy and for environmental and fill in the blank, that communities don't take advantage of. I expect, for example, these trillions of dollars that have been allocated here recently by the federal government are going to take years to spend. Just like under the Obama administration, we had $1 trillion to spend. It took close to 7 years to spend it. We need to have opportunities to meet with our local officials, our state and federal, see what we can expect to receive from their level, and of course, talk with our community here and be open to suggestions and pass forward, because there's always opportunities for moving our community forward and putting in new facility, or what, depending upon what the community would like to do here in Ocean Pines. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Frank is next, followed by Stewart. And while Frank is coming to the podium, please silence your phones. We didn't think we had to do that. Frank, you need the question?
No, I got it.
Got it.
Okay, already we have an excellent relationship with the county and with our state representatives. We get money for police, we get money for fire, we get money for roads. But our unique position as a homeowners association pretty much locks us out of any additional funding through state laws and just through the way government programs are structured. So yeah, we have a good relationship. We'll continue the good relationship. We're currently talking with them about doing things for fire and EMS services because, as you all know, countywide, fire and EMS services are struggling. And the county commissioners just allocated an additional $1 million for that. But I think if you expect them to come in and help with landscaping, help with the things that the association is supposed to do in the Declaration of Restrictions, it's pretty much going to be a dead end. Roads, bridges, fire, police. Pretty much looks like the end of the line.
Thank you, Frank. Stewart, you got the question? Do you need the question again?
I think I'm good.
Okay.
Well, let me state that I agree with Rick. I feel that we need to continue to look for more grant money. I don't agree with Mr. Daly that we can't get it. We already have precedent, the Bainbridge Pond project. That project was originally conceived as a water filtration project with a side benefit of drainage. Well, that drainage means a lot to the folks over in Bainbridge Pond because, they bought property and they didn't buy waterfront property when they bought it, but they have it. So this is going to alleviate quite a bit. We have another project, the Jenkins Point project for coastal replenishment. Coastal Bays is our advocate to the state for more grant money. We set the precedent of already getting grant money. I think we can continue to work on this. That's about, what else was there in that question? Can you go back to, I still got a minute left.
How would you work with county and state officials to bring in additional funding, and how would you propose spending county and state funds?
Okay, I think I went with the, how would I spend it? Now, how would we, listen, we have a great partnership with our county. We have a great partnership with Worcester. And we're right, we do get money from the casinos that gets allocated to our roads. We do get funding for our EMS, some help with that. So I think that we should continue our fine relationship. We have an amazing community. We have amazing volunteers that work here. We have amazing people that work in each of our departments here. Our employees make us great. Thank you.
Thank you, Stewart. The next question order is David, Rick, Stewart, and Frank. The question is, how familiar are you with Ocean Pines Advisory and other committees, and what committees would you most like to work with? David? And Rick is second.
I wish I was more aware of all of the advisory committees that exist within Ocean Pines. I do think that we can work with our public works to ensure that our drainage is addressed. Beautification programs, etc., I think would be something that I would like to work with. As could be as simple as let's start seeing if residents would like to sponsor putting benches along our walkways, along the boardwalk. I understand there's a committee that looks into beautification. My commitment is to become more aware of the various committees that do exist, and especially as concerns finance and budget. And I would hope that I contribute in a manner which brings my unique perspective, and to those particular committees. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Rick?
I think what is intriguing to me, or what I like to be a part of, and I think it's really important, is for me to be part of the Budget and Finance Committee. I could tell you that that it's in pretty good shape right now, and to where it was comparable past 3 to 4 years. The different approach that they had previously, where you had a top-down approach and the new bottom-up approach, making sure that you have the directors and the Budget and Finance Committee being involved with the budget. I think that's really, really important to do so. I do, in my civilian career, I am involved with Compensation Committee and Budget and Finance as a board member with that. So that's some of the talent that I could bring within the Pines here. But it's important from that bottom-up approach to have a lot of clarity, and the word that we sometimes don't like to see is transparency. But I think it's important that we work together as a board member with the Budget and Finance Committee, and making sure that those recommendations go up to the general manager for approval, or push back down for us to do a readvisement. So I think it's important that we do have those factors, and that's something that I definitely want to be involved with, is the Budget and Finance Committee. The other one is the beautification. There's a lot of things that have deteriorated since my time in the Pines. The bridge coming into North Pines, several bulbs are burned out or missing, and just simple things like that. The flowering, the beautification, and what I've seen previously, as it has been well maintained in previous years. I think it's more important, to really get back to what we were years ago, and the beautification of Ocean Pines, and making sure that that is attractive to homeowners and prospective owners in Ocean Pines. Thanks.
Thank you, Stuart. Then Frank.
Rick stole my thunder. I wanted to do BNF.
You can still do it.
I'm still going to do it. If I'm elected as a member here, I do want to join the BNF committee as the liaison. This is the heart of what makes our community run. I think we should also tap into some of the abundant capital we have, our residents. We have a lot of folks with an amazing amount of experience, lawyers, accountants, engineers. These people will volunteer to help us. Listen, there are some aspects that BNF comes up with suggestions, and they don't get implemented. For example, take a look at your mailboxes. BNF had an incredible plan for mailbox replacement. It's been nixed, and it wouldn't be that expensive to implement. So we have, right now, there is a evaluation of every asset going on within Ocean Pines. And that management of all of our assets comes down to our reserve fund. And BNF, Budget and Finance, they manage they are part of making sure the reserve is intact and making sure that we run efficiently. And I just think that more of their recommendations should be implemented on the board level through the GM. And thank you. And I have 30 seconds left.
Thank you, Stuart. You can't yield your time to Frank. It's gone. Frank?
Hopefully I won't need the time. Actually, I'm pretty familiar with the committees. I've been the liaison to strategic planning and the committee head. I've been the liaison to budget and finance. I'm currently the liaison to golf and aquatics, and I want to address those two last. Somebody talked about a bottoms-up approach to strategic planning. We have one now with the general manager, because when I was on the strategic planning committee, we changed the process so it was bottoms up. And it gave a 5-year look for capital spending and for operational spending. Second of all, budget and finance, absolutely essential. But it's important to understand the Budget and Finance Committee, as all these committees, are advisory committees to the board. The board kicks this process off by giving direction to the BNF committee on what they want to see. The BNF committee comes back to us with, here's what you asked for, start chewing through it and making things balance out. The reason I have focused on golf and aquatics is because those are the two amenities that have the largest structural losses historically in Ocean Pines. And one of the things, if you know about me in 3 years on the board, I want every single amenity, line item by line item, to pull their own weight and make a net operating profit. I'm pleased to say this year it appears golf will do it, and we're working on aquatics. And this year, I think every other committee or amenity except aquatics will make that goal.
Thank you. The next question, the order will be Stuart, Rick, Frank, and David. What conclusions do you draw from the recent referendum? Stuart? And Rick up.
It's pretty easy. The conclusion I draw from the referendum that was just passed, which I voted for, is it's another set of controls we put on the board. $1 million? Listen, if anything really breaks here, it's going to really cost more than $1 million, and we all need to have a say in whether or not, how we're going to fix it, whether we're going to fix it. We're charged with making, we have a $14 million a year business here. So I was in favor of the referendum so that there's no misunderstanding. I feel that those controls put more of the say of what goes on in our town to us. So I can't defer that time, huh?
Okay, thank you. Rick, and then Frank is up next.
I too voted for the referendum as well. I think controls have to be in place. You have to be fiscally conservative when you're dealing with such a large budget of running an operation of over $14 million a year. And I think it's very, very important for us as all residents of the Pines to know and understand where these funds are being allocated to. And yes, well, there will be some expenditures that exceed over $1 million, but we also have to have a say-so from our community. It's important. These are our assessments that we pay, and it's important for us to know exactly what they are, so every resident is informed as far as where that is going. So I think it's very, very important. I think it's a great process that we put in place to have a control mechanism, as Stuart alluded to, and I think that is at the betterment of the organization to be fiscally conservative in what we are doing and what we are spending. Thanks.
Thank you, Frank, and then David.
I think from a political standpoint, it told us we have a lot of work still to do. Look, over decades, years and years, there has been a serious amount of mistrust developed between the members of this association and the board. They simply don't trust board to board, GM to GM to spend a lot of money. And they won't trust it until we get a series of boards and a series of GMs that show they're going to spend their money wisely. From a practical standpoint, guys, it really doesn't make any difference. I'm looking at all you, I know me, most of the people in this room will be long gone before we spend another $1 million on a building. And where we see that will be infrastructure. And when that comes up, guess what? We're going to have to plan better as a board, plan better as an association management team, and put it before you well in advance with some very firm fixed cost. Because there'll be referendums for infrastructure, and those referendums will start with big drainage projects.
Thank you, Frank. David, need the question again?
No, it's not.
Okay.
The board needs to be accountable for every dime that it moves to spend. The referendum picked an arbitrary number of $1 million. And you need to be accountable to your residents for whether it's $1 million, $750,000, or $2 million. And yes, inflation will impact in the future, and we'll probably have additional referendums as to move the number to a different value. But regardless, before one begins a capital project, I do understand that the contractors need to be confident that the board can make those commitments for the future, since it takes years to put a capital program together. However, there needs to be restrictions, there needs to be controls, so that those that are committing the money or making promises, I'm what's known as a contracting officer's representative. I can't make commitments to spend money in the federal government. I need a contract. I need to work with my contract, my offerers, and the folks that actually sign the checks before we move forward it does take a lot of transparency in using that word. Everyone needs to be aware of what's happening. You need not to be surprised when it comes to any kind of major expenditure, a capital expenditure. So was the referendum needed at $1 million? I can't really say that's the correct number, but it does impose restrictions on the board. It means they have to go to the members or to the residents and make sure that they concur with what the future will be. Thank you.
Thank you, David. The next question order will be Rick, Stewart, David, and Frank. A work group is working toward significant changes to the Ocean Pines bylaws for the first time in more than a decade. What would you change about current Ocean Pines bylaws? First up is Rick, followed by Stewart.
I think one of the biggest things is we need to take a look with everything, and where we agree on these particular items or where we don't. I think it's important that we do a line item on each of them and making sure that they make sense and they make sense to all of our residents here. We also have to understand what the impact of them if we have to change them, and because we can't have a wait and see perspective with that. So I do think it's important that we do, and over a period of time, take a look at these, and if there are significant changes that we need to make, that we go ahead and propose those specific changes, and we go ahead and propose those specific changes out to our residents as well, and making sure they have a clear understanding of what we're trying to do with our community.
Thank you, Stewart. I'm sorry, Rick. Stewart next, and then David.
Rick was pretty succinct. I agree with Rick. I want to back up 1 second on that referendum question. Frank mentioned we'll be long gone before anything really needs to be replaced, and I have to take issue with that. We have a firehouse on the south side that doesn't meet code, is going to need to be replaced. We have a beach club that is coming soon to the end of its life, and it may come to its life end in this next board. So consider that. Now, getting back to the bylaws change that Steve asked, bylaws changes, I think if you have to take a look at our declarations of restrictions, every section's different. Every section's different. You can't get things done because they're all different. If we are going to do some type of a bylaws change, we need to come with a uniform set of DRs for every section, something that we can get done. It seems unlikely because of what's involved, but I think if we start with small things in each section to make them uniform, we may actually make some progress to that. And thank you.
Thank you, sir. Frank. Oh, I'm sorry, David was next. I apologize. I apologize.
I believe our charter and our bylaws were established, I don't know, I'm old enough, I should know it, maybe 30 years ago. I mean, I've had some people tell me that our bylaws that we work by are somewhat archaic. I agree that each needs to be reviewed. There should be not one person making the decision or 3 people making the decision. Obviously, the community needs to be involved. I do believe in uniformity. Everyone needs to be treated the same, and I agree that you can't make each of these subdivisions agree to have the same restrictions or policies if today they're different than the name, you know, the subdivision, if you want to call it, down the street, I guess. When I was involved in local government, now it's too many years ago to think about, but let's say well over 20 years ago, when I was working with what's referred to as town meeting up in the Massachusetts area, it was difficult. About 200 of us represented 40,000 people, and we had budgets we had to deal with. We had, the only one that we couldn't play with was the school budget. So we were intensely involved in writing policy to ascertain or to dictate how we modify how each of the different parts of the community must structure their facilities, their buildings, the roads. I agree that we need to go through line item by line item and decide what is best for the community and then let the community decide. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Frank?
So the bylaws were last revised in 2008. And the work team has to really, I think, focus in 4 areas, and they are. First, there's some conflicts. I mean, we're dealing with some documents that are old, and sometimes there are conflicts. Other times, there's misunderstandings. We had a referendum. Year to year, the number of votes required for that referendum are different. If you read the bylaws, one interpretation, a strict interpretation, is it should require 845 votes. That has to be cleaned up. The other thing that's missing from the bylaws and our declaration of restrictions, which governs the contract between us and you as homeowners, is there's no force majeure. This year, when we were in the middle of a pandemic, we knew that a lot of the people in Ocean Pines would have trouble paying their assessment. We had to go back to our governing document, our Articles of Incorporation, to find a legal basis for delaying paying the assessment to help you all out. That has to be corrected. The other thing, just to, so truth doesn't become another casualty, we are not responsible for replacing the South Firehouse. We are responsible for working with the fire department to make sure and pay for their equipment, okay? We are working with state and local officials to try to get money so that when the South Firehouse has to be replaced, that comes from state, federal, local funds, county funds.
Thank you, Frank. This next question will be Frank, David, Rick, and Stuart. It's going to sound familiar. Starting in 2014, OPA became responsible for the replacement of mailboxes and pedestals and concrete and asphalt repairs to its 50 cluster sites. However, replacement costs were not added to the reserve budget. What is your plan to fund reserves and kick off initial replacement work? Frank? David on deck.
Our board has created a plan. We right now have, for small projects, a fund set up that takes part of the reserves each year for new capital improvements that didn't exist prior to a year and a half or 2 years ago. That's one way to approach the mailboxes. When you talk about 50 clusters, those clusters could very well also approach the referendum level. We could develop a plan and put it in front of you for having a referendum to replace the clusters. Those are our 2 options: piecemeal, using the new capital reserve, or one time going referendum.
Thank you, Frank. David, Rick on deck.
This is, to me, an example of either doing it piecemeal, as Frank mentioned, could happen, and that's doing it without having the entire community participating in the event, in the financial obligation that we're all going to bear. And since if the decision really is to replace each of the clusters of mailboxes and possibly put covers over them and whatever else may be necessary, we need to know how many are actually used. There are probably a number of, not get minutia, number of boxes are probably not used by the residents. They may have post office boxes instead. They may have other mailing addresses. And if we know that the total project cost is a certain dollar amount, that needs to be taken to the community, have the community decide they want it, and then have a referendum on that particular major expenditure, because that's exactly what it is. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Rick, Stuart on deck.
Well, the mailboxes, from what I understand, are not currently listed as one of our assets right now, and I think that's what needs to be done. I know there was a study that was done previously, and where it talked about replacement costs on how much it was going to be, and I believe that it got shelved or delayed. So there has been a study in full detail that was presented to the board, but for whatever reason, that it was nixed. And I'm not sure of what that reason is, but I can tell you personally, in my neighborhood, I live off of Bird Nest Drive, and my mailbox is totally dilapidated. The pedestals are all rusted, and when I go there, I hear people complaining about it, and that the concrete and the asphalt is cracking, and people are tripping. So I do think that this is something that we really need to really take a look at, because the post office doesn't own these anymore. We own this. This is our asset now. So I think for the betterment of our community, that we need to take a look at putting that first and foremost, or one of some of the items that we need to take a look at to have funding. And moving forward with that, and really having a new set of mailboxes for our community, and whether we add lighting to them, or whether we add some lighting to them, or covers, that's something that we need to have in consideration. But this project has already been outlined, it's been planned, and it's been presented. So all the data is out there, and I think we need to take a look at it again. Thanks.
Thank you, Rick. Stewart?
Again, I agree with Rick. How about that? The mailboxes were missed on our previous DMA study, and I think the new capital reserve fund, I don't believe, Frank, that this would qualify on the new capital reserve fund. I think this is part of the replacement fund, but be that as it may, this work has already been done by Budget and Finance. It's been documented, it's been outlined. All that has to happen is that we put it in play. You replace the bad ones first and work your way backwards. These things have lasted 40, 50 years. Nothing to say that the next group, we will not be here the next time these mailboxes have to be replaced, if there even is mail. But we do own those boxes, and we need to make them, we need to fix them. They're unsightly. They're embarrassing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Stuart. The next order will be David, then Rick, Stuart, and Frank. If you are elected, over your term, you will deal with several major infrastructural projects, several of which have already been mentioned. Southern Fire Station, Beach Club, Northgate Bridge are things that come to mind off the top. I'm sure there's others over your term. How would you approach projects like these? David? Rick on deck.
Well, I do believe that before you start any project, all of the facts need to be ascertained regarding what you intend on doing and what you expect as an engineering project at the end of the day. Of course, you need to share that with the residents of your community. I would expect that we would assign committees to study. I would expect that we would expect them to report back to us in an expeditious manner, and then have a time for comment by the residents, and then decide whether or not we move forward. Of course, we are running ourselves, we should be running ourselves as a business. You do what you can afford. And obviously there's monies available, as we talked earlier, that might be grants or other kinds of awards, cost share from the public sector to work with us, public being government, to help us put these capital projects into play so that they get done. The firehouse is an example. Is it a new firehouse? Is it, I hate to be facetious, but is it like the Leaning Tower of Pisa? Do we redo the foundation as they did in Italy? And because I happened to be serving in Italy at the time, I know that occurred. I believe that you work with local government, you try to get it fully funded if possible, and ensure that you're not surprised at the end of the day that there's additional expenditure that's required and you've not yet completed the project. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Rick, Stewart's on deck.
I think when we're dealing with end of life on some of our facilities, yes, as Stu mentioned, our beach club is getting close to to that prospect of replacement or fixing up. And one of the things I think we need to do is if we are going to do a total replacement, it's out of compliance in some of the areas, like ADA requirements. It's out of compliance right now. So these are some of the studies that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to do a cost analysis on a replacement cost, or how we're going to do it as far as fixing it up and getting compliant. The drainage has to be upgraded as far as the beach club to where it's at today to meet the county code. So that's really, really important that we need to take a look at that as well. And really have the community involved. And if we are going to do a replacement, then we need to get the community involved to show them some different plans, just like we did with the yacht club, making sure that they know and understand what we're trying to do, and making sure that we are have full openness and clarity on a replacement cost for that. The same as if it would be for the firehouse. I think right now it is out of code. The South Firehouse is out of code. And that's a reality. So we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do with that. And right now, I think it should be kind of a wait and see as far as that's concerned, and just to see where we're at. Right now, it's in a preliminary stage of discussion, but there's going to be a point in time where we're going to have to tackle that issue as well. But I think right now, the first item up is going to be the beach club, and that's going to be a reality. And we want to make sure that our reserves are upped back to the 24-25% of the value, so what we have of our community, and making sure that's up, because right now we're around 14-15%. We need to get that up there and then start talking about how we're going to replace the beach club. Thanks.
Thank you, Rick. Stuart, Frank on deck.
Rick mentioned that our reserves are 14 or 15%. I think they may be a little bit higher, but you're absolutely correct, Rick. Our DMA study is going to show that we're going to need 24% of our assets in reserve so that we can replace these things, and it doesn't hit us in our pocket real bad, because part of our assessments go to those funds so that we can replace our infrastructure. Now, we have to maintain our infrastructure. There have been plenty of studies done, but seriously, we have to continue to apply best business practices on how we manage this money. Make sure, and this is a little off topic, make sure our amenities that lose money, maybe they can lose less, Drainage has to be a continued effort. It's not one and done, Bainbridge, it's done. It's not that at all. Right now, today, 40% of our community is affected by water issues. In 10 years, it's going to be close to 60%. Everybody has a stake in drainage. So it's not going to go away. There's no way to actually totally fix it, but there are ways to alleviate a lot of the problems so they're not as bad. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Frank.
Two minutes. Let me go down in the staccato thing. As I said, the South Fire Station building is not our responsibility, but I wanted to alert you. If all else fails at the state, federal, and county level, they will be coming to us, asking us to help fund that building. But until those venues of funding are exhausted, we're kind of off the hook, but very, very interested bystanders. The cluster mailboxes, it's real simple. If it's not an asset and we go to build something, it has to come from new capital. New capital, the limit is $1 million. Above that, we go to referendum. Below that, we have new capital reserve. On the Northgate Bridge, it's slated for replacement in 2035. It'll cost about $1 million. There's a little game you play in getting money from the county and from the state in bridges. You want the bridges to be deteriorated enough so that you get funding, but good enough to use. And that's happened in every bridge replacement that we've done. Sorry to inform you that's the game, but that's what it is. If you want to replace it tomorrow, we go to referendum for $1 million. Okay, as far as the beach club, with exterior and interior renovations, the beach club will be good for another 20 to 25 years. Those renovations will be under the referendum limit. But when we go to replace the beach club, get ready for some real big numbers that you haven't seen in Ocean Pines since you've lived here. The final thing is drainage. I tell you, we have one drain. I worked for the last year with Public Works on a drainage program. Let me give you the overview. To maintain our ditches, our under driveway pipes, okay, and the underground pipes that we have that are replaced, that cost would increase your base assessment by $700. The one drainage project that convey water from 2 and 3 down Beauchamp Road, $12 million.
Thank you. The next order for answers will be Stuart, Frank, David, and Rick. How much do you know about the time and workload requirements of serving on the board, committees, and related work? How would you balance that with your other work-life obligations, both virtually and in person? Rick, Frank on deck. I'm sorry, Stuart, Frank on deck.
That's an interesting question, Stephen. I have the benefit of being the husband of a previous board member. So I know what's involved and how much time she took on the board and what went into the board and how she had to manage that time so that she could run her businesses. I think I have the same muster to do the same thing. I feel that I can take care of board business and run my practice. I have to tell you, folks, I have brought in a colleague and I have funneled off some of my practice as I start to get ready to retire here in the Pines. So I'm half-time here right now, but I'm working on full-time soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Frank, David on deck.
Well, I would say it's this way. It's kind of like a hobby. You treat it like a hobby, you spend time like you do on a hobby. If you treat it like it's serious, it's 2 to 3 hours a day and 2 to 3 meetings a week where you're called into emergency meetings. That's the price you have to pay to be on the board. When I first was recruited for the board, somebody told me it was 2 hours a week. I haven't spent 2 hours a week, okay, since the first day I was recruited. So count on it, it is almost like, I wouldn't call it a half-time job, but there are times where it really comes up to be that on a continuing basis. And budget time is one of them, when you have to be here day after day, hour after hour.
Thank you, Frank. David, Rick on deck.
I believe that the time that is necessary to work with the on the board with the various committees is something that I can commit to. I've learned over the last year, especially, how much can really get done in a virtual setting. Reality is, working for the federal government, I have been sitting in my living room looking at computer screens and computers virtually every day, but it's also a face-to-face time frame. It's very valuable. I'm at the verge where I'm at the verge of retiring anyways from my full-time endeavors. And I believe that taking a couple of hours a day or more, first, doing it both virtually and face-to-face is something that I can commit to working with Ocean Pines. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Rick?
First, I'm a full-time resident here, and I do work remote 100% of the time in my current position, but I will tell you it's all about time management and how you manage your time effectively. And I have control of my schedule in the position that I'm in, so dedicating time to the board and the expectations of the board is and would not be an issue for me. It's all about how you juggle your schedule and manage that. I do think it's important when you're managing a development such as Ocean Pines, there is going to be a lot of time, as Frank mentioned. So you are going to manage, 2 to 3 hours a day working on items that you're dealing with the board and the community. So I get that understanding. So you're going to have to be able to know how to manage your time effectively to be able to dedicate your time to doing so. So it was my understanding when I decided to run for the board here that it is going to take time. And that's one of the things that I do have and being able to afford it to me is being able to manage my own schedule for that. So, and it's also important that I am full-time here. And so I just live right down the street. And so being able to come to the meetings when there's emergency sessions or what have you is not going to be any issue for me. So that is one of the reasons why I wanted to be involved with running for the board as a director here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. The next questions will be answered by Rick, then Frank, then Stuart, then David. What experience in OPA has prepared you for being a director of this association? Rick, Frank on deck.
Well, I can tell you as a property owner since 1999, I've been involved, I would say, probably from the outside. I've watched how this community has evolved. And while I have not been on a board position, I have watched and managed how the board is run. I watched and managed to see how the certain decisions that the board has come up has affected the community. So I get that part. What is given me the opportunity to be successful in this role is the things that I've acquired in my military and my civilian career. I'm part of several executive boards that I'm involved with. I know how the boards are run in a professional manner. When you're dealing with finances of firms of $100 million or more, and having budgeting in my department in human resource of 15 to 20 million just in my department, I know and understand how to deal when you're dealing with that type of level of involvement. So these are some of the things that I've acquired through my 33 years in human resources as an executive, and these are some of the things that I'll be able to take with me as I come onto the board and be able to manage and be fiscally responsible and fiscally conservative when I'm dealing with the OPA and dealing with the residents here in the Pines. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank, Stuart on deck.
I guess there's nothing like learning how to fly except by taking the controls. I think by being a director, you learn a lot about being a director, but there's some things that I think you'd find kind of unique sitting in a director's chair. Ocean Pines, first of all, is a very complicated business. It is as complicated as businesses that run at a $100 million plus level. The other thing about Ocean Pines you have to understand is there is a very definite and very real political calculus to it. Because when you step in that boardroom, okay, no matter who you are, people are going to like you, and people aren't going to like the ground you walk on. No matter what decision you make, you're going to have people that agree and people that disagree. You have to learn how to manage your way through that on a day-to-day basis, dealing with very complex issues for 8,000 plus homeowners, 12,000 plus residents. And that's the real trick to it. It's not like in business where you say, do this or else. It's like in this organization, we want to do this. Here's the constraints from the bylaws, from the declaration of restrictions. Here's the constraints on the political side from the homeowners. Here's the constraints on the financial side. You have to work that all together, work with your colleagues to get things done. And by piecing things together that way, that's how you move the community forward and meet your commitments to the homeowners.
Thank you, Frank. Stuart, David on deck.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Oh, certainly. What experience in OPA has prepared you for being a director of this association?
What experience in OPA has prepared me? Well, I have 30 years running my own business. This is a business like any other. It's a very complicated, multifaceted business, but I haven't been in business for 30 years by accident. Managing budgets, marketing, employees, it's the same here. We have to make sure we continue to attract the best and keep the best. The morale here, not the best. We have to do something to change that. Proven leadership, problem solving, I've done that. I think that this transfers into Ocean Pines. Every aspect of what I do in practice transfers here. I can do, if I can't do it, I'll tell you. but I think I know I can do this. You have to know how to communicate with people. You talk about working with a board of 7 personalities in order to get things done. We all come, there's 7 people that come from different backgrounds. Each one of these 7 people on our board, they volunteer their time, and there are 2 seats open. I want to volunteer my time for you. And I think I can do a great job for you, and I hope you consider me. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. David?
In the military and in private sector and even in the federal government, it's not do this or else, no matter what some folks may think. In the military, I was in command for well over 11 years I enlisted in '74 and retired 7 years ago. In private industry, I put 30 years in. And yes, I worked for a number of companies that were all startups and also started my own small technical analytical firm. You have people you're responsible for, budgets you're responsible for, you make decisions, but it's not an ultimatum kind of decision. Yes, I've not worked in OPA formally on the various boards. I bring a new perspective. And in the last, but I do bring the capability to manage people. Pete, you're absolutely right. Not everyone will be happy with your decisions or how you proceed in a certain manner. And then there'll be a group of people that are just thrilled with what you're doing. When it comes to money, currently I'm personally responsible for well over $2 million, not more than a few years ago. I had $120 million that were personally within my bucket to manage. So I am very capable when it comes to managing money, very capable when managing individuals and personnel and moving projects forward. And I believe, again, I'm volunteering for this. I know that I'll put the time in for this. And even though I may not have been intimately involved in OPA affairs in my communities, I have always participated, even if it's just as a volunteer fireman. I've always ensured that I am part of the system in which I live. So I hope that that gives me the background and the qualification for being part of the OPA board. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Actually, you can stay up there. You're up first on the next question, and then it'll be Rick, then Stuart, then Frank.
That may not be a good thing.
Trying to save all the moving around here.
Oh, I see.
How would you help the association recover from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, especially those amenities and departments that suffered the biggest losses because of the pandemic?
Well, of course, in some regards, I've already helped the community recover. I've been part of Operation Warp Speed for the last year. And of course, I've been more on the mechanics side and the physical side, not the development of the vaccines themselves and in structuring the various studies that have gone on. But on the other hand, yes, we've had a lot of amenities here that have suffered greatly because people have not been able to use them. I believe that we need to remind the community that these are available, ensure that they are open and maintained so that community members want to go and use the aquatic side, the beach side. I may not be a golfer. I like sailing instead. But go down and utilize all of the amenities that are in our community because, we're fortunate here. We have all of the things that you can do in any other resort town, but it's Ocean Pines and it's ours. And I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to be a member of the community. And I will continue to work to look at ways to make the amenities more accessible for all members, all residents of our community.
Thank you, David. Rick's up, Stuart's on deck.
One of the things that we need to really take a look at is hiring great people for our amenities in our community. I mean, right now, pools are only open for a limited amount of hours because we don't have the resources to fill those vacancies right now. So I think we really need to market Ocean Pines for folks who are looking for opportunities for employment and making sure that when we are putting that out there, making sure that we are competitive within the market. If we need lifeguards, if we need folks down in the aquatics, if we need individuals over at the beach club, we need to market that we are hiring, that we are open for business. And I think it's very, very important for us to have that community outreach. We could do blasts through strategic marketing events, whether it's through the local beach television channel that you see. But I think and advertise that we are definitely hiring, because right now we're not getting a lot of bang for a buck. If we're having our pools closed, we're not generating revenue from people buying or purchasing things. So I think it's important that to really recover from that, we really need to push it out that we are definitely open for business and to come to the Pines. And if you like the Pines and you can see the amenities that we have here, maybe we'll get a new resident to join us in our community. So that's how I would first handle dealing with this terrible pandemic that we've had.
Thank you, Rick. Stewart, Frank on deck.
Following Rick and keep saying Rick is right. But he's right. As we open up, we need to attract the best employees. Right now, our pools aren't open 7 days a week. We don't have enough people. We have, listen, I think this is a big secret. We have a world-class racket center. Nobody seems to, we need to market that. Where's our business plan for our golf? I don't see that being done. We have an amazing marketing guy, Josh. He is great at what he does. I think we need to utilize his talents a little bit more. Hey, anybody see the new playground that was put up over in Robin Hood? It's beautiful. It's handicapped accessible. Who does that? We do. That's who we are. We are Ocean Pines. Thank you.
Thank you, Stewart. Frank?
Kind of feel bad putting up all these facts. But here's the real story for the year ending April 30th. All of our amenities made a net operating profit with the exception of 3 in aggregate. Aquatics lost $295,000. Golf lost $96,000. Racket sports lost $66,000. Now, if you look at that and look at the effect of the pandemic, the golf course was closed for 6 weeks and ran for a good part of the season, early season last year, with reduced capacity on the carts. You could only get so many people out on the course. That issue has been taken care of. Golf should be profitable this year, okay? With racket sports and with aquatics, it looks like we have more of a structural thing that we have to address. One thing with aquatics, we could staff it up fully, but if we staffed it up fully, we'd be losing money hand over fist. Because when it is full operation, it still loses money. That's structural. That's where you need people to sit around the table and talk about aquatics being important, having good customer service, and have it meet its financial obligations to the members of the association so it doesn't put a drag on the assessment. That is structural. It's been there a long time. It's going to require some hard work. Golf, like I said, pretty much coming through. Racket sports, same thing. It's a little structural. But to put that in perspective, golf and racket sports had the net effect last year of hitting your assessment for $9 and $10 each. Pretty easy to solve one way or the other. Aquatics was more in the $40 range. Much bigger problem that requires a lot more thinking.
Frank, stick around. You're first up. This next question will be Frank, then Rick, then David, then Stewart. Who is responsible for the routine maintenance of the roads in our community, and how can our board of directors make sure that it is accomplished?
We are responsible for, the Ocean Pines Association is responsible for the routine maintenance. How can we make sure that's accomplished? Well, you can do it 2 ways, and there are 2 ways that we've been dealt with. We use the casino funds typically to do road repairs. We typically do those in the off-season so they don't disrupt the seasonal traffic, okay? To do more road repairs, you have to get more money in the road reserve. That reserve was hampered because a number of years ago, and I believe it was under Governor O'Malley, the state took away $500,000 a year in road funding for Ocean Pines. The board at that time, in a decision to keep the assessment low, never replaced that funding. So we went down from $800,000 essentially to $300,000. More road repair, more money. $300,000, we can do it as we do it today. And today seems to work okay, but there are certain situations which we could do better. And that's clearly the case. And it's our job to do it.
Thank you, Frank. Rick, David on deck.
I agree. The biggest thing on the roads is when we do own them. And we do get about $300,000 on an annual basis for our roads from the casino. But I think as far as how we're going to go ahead and manage that, I think we really need to take a look at some of our roads that are out there, some of the roads that are really dilapidated, some of them are desperate need of repair, and maybe put a work study together to see which roads need to be repaired first, and then kind of work through that whole thing. I mean, there are roads that I have seen, even in my neighborhood, where you have, that the asphalt's just chipping up and falling apart. And we need to really to know and understand what those areas are and really push those resources that we have to those that are in desperate need of repair. So I do agree with Frank on that. And I think it's important that we do make sure that we do allocate this funding that we're getting also from the casino. And if we can get other funding from elsewhere for these particular road repairs to make sure that, our cars that we run on these roads are not damaged by potholes that we see continually down the parkway and back in our neighborhoods. So I think we need some sort of a study, if you will, to see what we can repair first and then kind of move forward from there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rick. David, Stewart on deck.
Ocean Pines is responsible for routine maintenance. And for the most part, they do a good job. The need to do major repairs falls on a joint responsibility, as I understand it, for both Ocean Pines and potentially county and state. We have 10 to 20,000 taxpayers in this community. A little bit of political activism to get the state to put more money into their budget lines that might come directly to us. The federal government is talking very seriously about infrastructure investment right now. Well, we were very quick and I believe properly in position to apply for loans, the PPE loans previously this year, and received funding from the federal government. There's no reason why we don't pursue that direction as well in helping if we have major road repairs needed in the future. Again, we have to get the community involved to contact their local representatives, as well as to work with us to let us know what needs to get done and in what priority. So thank you.
Thank you. Stewart?
As it's been stated before, we own our roads. Roads are our responsibility. We maintain our roads usually by subcontracting and public works. The money we get from the casino, we divert that to roads. I think we get some federal money too, not much. But I think the bigger thing is when you take a look at our bulkhead program, we have a plan of when your bulkhead's going to be replaced. This bulkhead's going to be replaced on this date, and then we're going to move on to the next one, and we're going to move on to the next one. Well, we used to do that with roads, and we sort of got away from that. I think we should get back to that, where we have a plan, and every year, every fiscal year, we implement which roads are like the mailboxes. Which ones are the worst ones? Start there. Make a plan. Let's do it. Thank you.
Don't go away. You're first up next.
Okay.
This will be Stewart, David, Frank, and Rick. With regard to family-friendly amenities, have you considered possible locations for the replacement of the crab pier and making Wood Duck Park more accessible to all Ocean Pines members?
It's funny you say that, Stephen. That's a great question. The crab pier seemed to be a real hot topic a couple years ago. It became in such disrepair. It was not an amenity. It was turned over to us by the builder. So I know people used it and like it was an amenity, but I think our community wants it replaced. And it should come out of, because we have a new capital fund, I think that the funding for, I have to take a look at whether or not if you retire an amenity, but we didn't retire it. So it would have to come out of the new capital fund. And I think there used to be a pier over by the Swim and Racket Club. I think that would be a great place for a crabbing pier. If someone's got a better idea, I'm all ears. But yeah. And I think that answers the question.
Thank you, Stuart. David, then Frank on deck.
I can't argue with what was just described. We need to ensure that the residents want to have that considered a real amenity, and if so, we should move forward and pick this location that was just suggested or other like type, and ensure that we have the capital funds for it. And if it is requirement, if there's a requirement for a referendum, we hold it, and have the residents decide that they want to have that as amenity for Ocean Pines.
Thank you, Dave. David? Thought it was Frank, then Rick. Let's go Frank, then Rick. Here, that was. Sorry for the confusion. 4 letters and I can't keep them straight. It's terrible.
You better glasses.
I do.
Look, the crab pier was a topic 3 years ago. It had deteriorated to the point where it needed total replacement, and it was never an amenity for Ocean Pines Association. So we charged operations at that point in time, find a location for the crab pier, bring it to us as a board, and we're willing to discuss the replacement of it. It's probably, to put in round numbers, a $250,000 to $300,000 project, okay, to do that. The issue, though, that you got to be aware of, because I hear a lot of, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. And now this impacts drainage, it impacts crab pier, and it impacts construction. The minute you talk about putting a crab pier and you talk about going across that marsh grass into that river, be prepared to deal with the Army Corps of Engineers, the Maryland Department of Environment, the Department of Environment of the United States. Be prepared for a long permitting process. Same thing, to show you how it affects construction, the cart barn at the golf course. Cart barn was $98,000. When it was put up to the current code, which included environmental code, the price went up to $400,000. So throwing some of this stuff around, yeah, we can do this, we can do this. By the way, the mailbox is the same way. Prepared to have a design for each one, submitted to the county, and if that thing is anywhere close to a wetland, you're going to go through that same permitting process. It's not exactly like clicking your fingers and doing it immediately.
Thank you, Frank. Now, Rick. Sorry.
Well, I agree with all of my colleagues here. I think on the replacement of the crab pier, you know, as Frank alluded to, there's definitely going to have to be some sort of environmental study that's going to be done on that, and that is definitely costly to do that. But I also think that one of the things we ought to do that is making sure that we do have a community involvement of where do we, or have some specific locations, whether it was 3, 4, 5 different locations, and have some community vote on where they think, and have them involved, not us tell them where it's going to be at, but let's have them involved in that process as well. And, you know, it definitely will probably have to come out of the new capital fund as well for that. But I really do think it's important in this thing, when we're dealing with the crab pier, that we also need to look at if there are grants available or if there's any donations, somebody who would like to donate to do some sort of a funding like this. And I think that's an avenue that we should not take off the table for that. But I also think that something needs to be considered. But I also believe that, as I said and alluded to earlier, that this is something that if there are certain specific locations, whatever it is, 3, 4, 5 different locations, let's have the community get involved in deciding where that'll be so they know and understand where it's at, and they feel they're a part of the process of selection of that. Thank you.
Stick around. You're first. Yep. This next one will be Rick, David, Stuart, then Frank. Much has been made about the board's ability to get along. How would you help improve the working relationship among board members?
Well, I can tell you from my experience in the private sector, it's always at the best interest of the community or employees. That's what we look at first and foremost. We are not always going to agree on different areas and subjects, but at the end of the day, you know, we could sit here as professionals and understand that no matter if we didn't vote for a certain thing or against it, that we could sit here and as colleagues and remain professional with that. That's how I do it in a corporate environment. I think it's really, really important that we do so. I'm not in politics at all, and I don't want to be in politics. But I think that it's important that it's always going to be at the best interest of our community in every decision that we make. And I think it's important that we have open collaboration between board members and understanding reasons why they are leaning a certain way or why they want to vote a certain way. I think it's important to have that open communication. It's very, very important to do so. And that's how you function in a board, and that's how you function correctly, so you won't have any issues and you hear about a dysfunctional board while they're not working correctly or they're saying things outside of the boardroom, if you will, which is quite unprofessional. So at the end of the day, it's important that we all remain professional, that we all think that our decisions, the majority of what we come up with, is at the best interest of our community. Thanks.
Thank you. David, Stewart on deck.
Whether you be, again, in private sector, in the military environment, in government as a civilian, in academics, you're actually rated every year at how well you get along with your peers, your subordinates, and those who are responsible for you. I use the term, I love the term, we're professionals here. You respect what what your peers believe to be the truth. You don't live on innuendo and rumor. You ensure that you vote or you make decisions based upon fact and not, near fact. And at the end of the day, although you may not be the best buds, I may never go out and have scotches with you, although I love scotch. Okay, there you go. We have something already established between the two of us. But in any event, you make your decisions, you be professional within the confines of the board in this case, and then as you walk away, you do not backstab people, you maintain yourself. You are a professional, I am a professional, and I think I've spent too many years as a professional. I'll put it that way. Anyways, thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Stewart, Frank on deck.
Hey, Dave, what kind of scotch you drink?
Well, I don't mind personally.
I'm a Lion and a Rotarian in my community. I'm a community activist. I've always been like that, no matter where I've lived, and that'll transfer here. But this specific question about how would I approach the board, I think about it from a Rotarian view. If anybody's a Rotarian, they know the four-way test. Is it truth? Is it fair? Will it build goodwill and better relationships? And will it benefit all concerned? That's how I will be a director and relate to my fellow directors on the board. So thank you.
Thank you, Stewart. Frank.
Well, let me kind of explain the situation to you this way, because y'all read the paper, y'all read the media. We have two directors on each of opposite ends of the spectrum that don't really get along real well if you read the media, okay? But I want to point something out that's not really maybe front and center in your minds each day. This year, we've had 2 3-4 votes. One was on the removal of a director. The other was a motion that I put to release an investigative report and a B08 report to each of you with absolutely 0 redactions, okay? All the other votes come in 5-2, 6-1, sometimes we have 7-0, but not too many 4-3s. So what does that tell you? It tells you that people that probably aren't on #1 Christmas card list with each other are working together. They do listen on the issues, and they do collaborate on the issues. And when you do that inside a really tough, politically charged environment, and look, guys, let's don't candy coat this. We were trying to remove a director, okay? Twice. You don't expect those people to get around the campfire and sing Kumbaya together. It ain't gonna happen. And by the way, you're not gonna walk in as a new member of the board and sprinkle holy water on that board and they're gonna love each other. Ain't gonna happen. But when you stay in the middle and you focus on what somebody wants to do and how that benefits the association, you can work with both sides and get things done. And that's how I survive on the board.
Thank you, Frank. The next question will be Stuart, Frank, Rick, and David. Generally, only about 40% of homeowners vote in board elections. What would you do to encourage those who traditionally don't vote, and why should they vote for you? Stuart, Frank is on deck.
First, I think we should all start by singing Kumbaya together. Everybody? Thank you. While I've been campaigning for a position on the board, I'm knocking on hundreds and hundreds of doors, meeting hundreds and hundreds of our neighbors. I felt that if I'm going to represent them, I should meet them. So a lot of them, most of them, have no clue what goes on. There's an election coming up. I'm trying to have them come explain it to them. I spend time talking to them 2-3 hours a day, every day of the week that I'm down here. I think another thing that's overlooked, and COVID has taught this to us, is that we have the ability to broadcast our board meetings online. Everybody can zoom in and be part of the meeting. Now, the problem is we record them and they're released tomorrow on YouTube. You know what that does? It eliminates any public comments in real time. We need to get back to broadcasting our meetings, this meeting too, which will be tomorrow. And nobody can be part of it. Nobody could have sent Stephen a question. So this is an exclusive type of a meeting. All these meetings are exclusive. I think changing it to internet and broadcasting it allows the members here that can't get here and the members that don't live here that own here be part of what we do. And I think that's the way we should do it.
Thank you, Stuart. Frank?
Well, first, coming to meetings and voting are two different things. And I think we're seeing the trend that we see in local elections, we see in national elections. Not a lot of people are voting. But if you want to get a lot of people voting, start putting emotionally charged issues in front of them. Look, let's don't kid ourselves. If this board made a motion to increase the assessment to the levels that you see in River Run, $3,300 a house, or at Osprey Point, $9,000 a unit, you'd have plenty of people voting. The reason people aren't voting is some don't care, some are satisfied, some are out of town, and some are just, I can't change the system anyway. So what you have to do is continually educate, but also make sure that they understand that the important issues that you're discussing affect them and how the people that will represent them on the board affect them. Once you do that, you can get people engaged. And once you get people engaged, they will vote. But they have to be something that really, at the end of the day, they answer the age-old question, what's in it for me? If it's the same old, they won't vote. If they see something in there that energizes them, they'll be out and vote.
Thank you, Frank. Rick, David on deck.
Well, I guess this time Stuart stole my thunder this time. But I have to agree also with Frank too as well. But one of the things where you really can dial in on your community is what Stu alluded to, is door knocking. I've had that opportunity to meet our wonderful residents in the community, over hundreds and hundreds of homes, knocking on doors and introducing myself and listening to them. And I will tell you, there's times where I don't want to say stuck, but they just want to carry on a conversation because they have been ill-informed. They want to know what's going on. They want to know what my stance is on certain things. So I think it's very, very important that you get to know your community and the community involvement. As far as the part-time residents that feel that they're not part of the process, I'm part of an IT firm. And one thing that COVID has shown us is that we have connected with thousands of employees, and having them participate in Zoom calls or team calls and when we have scheduled meetings. I think if we schedule meetings way in advance and put it on the calendar for them, push out, press that we're going to have a specific meeting, a board meeting, so we can have them totally involved live. And we have the technology. The technology's out there to do that. And it's important that if we don't, to invest in that, because it's not that much to do that. And it's not that much to run a Zoom or anything like that. So I think it's important to do that and educate our residents of what we're doing in the community and let them know that their voices matter. Their votes matter. And if you continually have that and reaffirm them that, they are going to participate and stay involved. Thanks.
Thank you, Rick. David?
There's a lot that has been said that I would totally agree with. If nothing else, this last year has taught us it is very easy to participate in a meeting, in a near face-to-face event, and do it in a virtual setting. I mean, again, I've been sitting on my couch for a year and a half now, but in reality, I've been teleworking off and on for over 12 years right now. And it's a very successful approach to being able to get work done. We can get our residents involved in the same manner. I personally believe that it would be very useful to have live meetings, even if it's done in a virtual setting, with opportunity to come in and do face-to-face. And you're absolutely right. People tend to vote when there are hot-button topics. And I'm not saying we're going to make hot-button topics just to get people involved, but at least we should reach out to the community, let them know that their vote really is important, and then also consider our own voting approach. The fact that there's 100 votes sitting there because they didn't get delivered in time, and that's the same thing that's an issue with the national level. Maybe we should reconsider how we receive ballots. Maybe we do it electronically. Maybe we look at the postmark. Maybe we have other drop boxes. Maybe we reach out, and since some states allow for collection, maybe we take that approach where we have private service collection of ballots. I don't know what is the best thing. We should study it. I hate to say everything needs to go to a committee and study, but we should ensure that whatever we do works to the benefit of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our series of questions. Before we move to closing statements by the candidates in reverse ballot order, I'd just like to make sure you're aware, most of these questions came from our members. The email elections@oceanpines.org. I'm sure Josh will have it in the press releases. The newspapers always have it. We are planning to have a second forum virtually. The date and time will be announced, but it'll be through GoToMeetings, which we've demonstrated works very well. So we'll be planning to do that. If you have questions for the candidates, please don't hesitate to send them to us. We like to have the job of sorting through and trying to find what we believe are the most important questions, the most valuable questions to ask of the candidates. So with that announcement said, Rick, if we go to your closing statement, sir, you have 3 minutes each.
First, I want to thank everybody for coming on out on this rainy evening, and I want to thank the candidates as well for coming out on this the robust discussions that we've had and our different points of views on the different subjects that were brought to us. As I mentioned before, I'm not a politician, nor do I ever want to be a politician. What I care about and what I've cared about in my career, whether it's in the military or in the corporate environment, is people. That's what I care about. I care about through integrity and openness and honesty. And those are the charges that I've had in my life and the things that I've been as I was raised. Being a part of this board, I want to be able to ensure that the voices of our community are heard, and really for them to understand that they do have an active listening partner with them. I'm not going to promise that I could solve problems, but what I can promise is that I will bring their concerns to the board, and that's what's most important. And I'll work hard. I'll be dedicated to ensure that this community stays where it needs to be, and that's the community where folks who want to retire. I want to make sure that our amenities are superior than all the other amenities that are out there in different communities. I want to make sure that we promote that we can bring in new residents to our community and to show them to what we have here as a community environment and all the amenities and the assessments that we pay is what Frank alluded to, pales in comparison to what others are being charged as residents. But what you're going to get from me is somebody who is going to be dedicated as a director to work well with a director, to partner with our general manager. And I think that's one of the things that's most important as a board member, is that we establish and maintain that partnership with our general manager and vice versa, that they maintains that partnership with us at the best interest of the community, not one's self, but for the community at large. And that's what you're going to get from me as a new director. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. David?
Again, just like everyone else will, I thank you for being here on this wet night. I thank you for giving me an opportunity to voice some opinion and give some perspective from my point of view. I think that I will bring to this community, whether or not elected, my professionalism, my honesty, my approach to life, which I believe is not tainted by innuendo or other undesirable interests. I believe in knowing what I'm doing. I'm a nerd. I'm a science and technology person. I have worked at every level of government. I've been on congressional subcommittees. I have been in private industry. I have been in the military. I have been in hostile environments, and I have been in very nice environments. I believe that the community should be able to work together. I believe this is a volunteer organization. This is not supposed to be a political organization. Thank you for laughing. And in fact, as a government employee right now, I cannot represent nor espouse a political view when it comes to real politics. And I'm thankful for that. Regardless, I plan on, just like I have in every other community that I live in, I get involved with my community, whether it be when I was a town meeting member more years ago than I like to believe, but I did get reelected, so I must have done something right. To being part of volunteer organizations, even if it's just on the fire service or the EMS, and I will do the same here in Ocean Pines. I am transitioning to retirement. It may take me a year, 2 or 3, but I'm already past that time where I probably should have already made that decision. But it's sometimes hard to give up a paycheck, I'll be the first to admit. But if I am elected, I will serve and serve in a manner which provides all of my attention that's necessary to do the job. And I thank you regardless of how this goes for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Stuart?
My name's Stuart Lackernick. Not an easy name to remember. But first, I want to thank the election committee, Steve, Mary, Carol, Rich. Thank you very much for putting this together. It's important that the community sees who they're going to vote for if they tune in. I'm a passionate man. What you see is what you get. I may actually be the kumbaya candidate. I'll go with that. I'm a peacemaker by nature. I have a strong personality. I work well with others, though. You know, I think about it. We're all shareholders in this company of Ocean Pines. I know it's not a stock company, but we all own a share of the success of what this place can do. And we'll, and God forbid, if it goes down, we all are part of this. I can promise you one thing, and I can absolutely promise you, I'll do my best. That's all anybody can do. Working with other folks, listen, there are 7 individuals on this board. We make policy that the general manager carries out. That general manager delegates his authority to the department heads, and guess what? Your culverts get cleaned out. Your lawns get mowed, the mowing happens. Golf operations happen. I have to tell you, we have amazing employees here. We really do. We are blessed to have the best. We need to make sure that we continue to attract the best. The business of Ocean Pines is a very complicated business, and there is a political charge to this whole thing. But you bump into me at the Food Lion or the Yacht Club, please say hi. I'm not unapproachable. This is who you'll get as a member of your board if you so elect me. And thank you very much, everybody, for the time.
Thank you, Stuart. Frank?
Well, let me share you an inconvenient truth about politics. Candidates run on promises. Incumbents run on their record. In 2018, I was a candidate running on promises. Today, as an incumbent, I stand with and I'm running on my record. In 2018, I promised to keep assessments low, stable, and predictable. Mission accomplished. During my tenure, your base assessment has increased a total of $10. I promised to address aging, dilapidated facilities that had suffered from decades from a lack of maintenance and typical repairs. Our new police headquarters, golf clubhouse, cart barn, craft building, and refurbished beach club speak for themselves. I promised to address infrastructure, and we have. Bulkhead renovations are on schedule, and expenditures for drainage projects are at record levels. After years of trying, we now have a Mediacom competitor, Comcast. In 2018, I promised to address the record losses we were experiencing with our amenities. Again, mission accomplished. During my tenure, the Yacht Club and Beach Club have moved from record losses, by the way, those losses were $1.1 million, to profitability, and that was last year during the pandemic. And for the first time since I moved to Ocean Pines in 2013, it appears that all amenities, with the exception of aquatics, will show net operating profits in the upcoming year. And finally, I promised I'd work hard with management to change the culture from one that the very first board meeting I sat in I called damnable indifference to one of operational excellence. And I believe the performance of the management team during the past 3 years, especially during the pandemic, shows that we have complicated that challenging transformation with flying colors. I'd like to thank you for your support, because at the end of the day, you made it possible, okay? You support me as a director. And I'm asking for your vote to continue the progress we've made over the past 3 years into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Gentlemen, on behalf of the entire association, we would like to thank all 4 of you for volunteering to run to be a director in this association. We appreciate your efforts. We promised we'd get you out by 9. I think we're going to make it. This meeting is over. Thank you.